I was gonna make my little update video outside, but in case, chill out. I moved into an apartment, so I don't have no garage no more. All my parts is really like in the back half of the living room. I'm gonna get a little shelf for it. But as far as the updates going, I've been busy with work and school, and also the car has been straight. It's just throwing some emissions code. This is the second one right now I gotta deal with. The first one was the O2 sensor, which was on the bottom. Top one was fine, and then I got that replaced like last week. Now my second code is throwing for a catalytic converter. So I'm like, damn, I don't want to use that because I have the Skunk 2 header. You know, I showed y'all all the parts in the last video, and that was one of them. And as far as parts go, got one more thing, which was the Insane Shafts axles, because I did not want to deal with the AutoZone axle, and even the OEM axle, because they kind of fail prematurely with having the car lowered, and especially when they add a little bit more power, I think it's going to even accelerate that deterioration of the axle itself. And I have them laid out here on my coffee table, so I'm gonna show y'all what I was dealing with. But first, I'm gonna walk y'all through, this catalytic converter business, because I don't even want to use that thing. So as you can see, the Skunk 2 downpipe header, whatever we want to call it, same thing, has like a high flow and no restriction, unlike the catalytic converter where it has that restriction to clean up the air, the emissions of the car. But they do provide a upper and lower port for O2 sensor, which I love, because what I would have to do is put an OEM catalytic converter on the car, pass emissions, and take it off so I can put this on when I get my full exhaust. But since the emissions came up and failed this time around, I'm gonna just go ahead and roll the dice on this and see if it'll pass. And if it doesn't, I can talk to K-Tuner and see if we can if I could put a laptop on the car and they could walk me through how to tune out the O2 sensors. Because my friend had a 2017 GLI, the Jetta GLI, and he had a bigger turbo and the aftermarket downpipe, and his car threw a code for emissions. Had a check engine light, and he went through and got it done with APR, his tuner, and he was able to pass his emissions. Okay, so started from the left. These are the Insane Shaft that I recently ordered, and right here is the AutoZone Duralast axle, and it'll pretty much be like the same if I compared it to something from Advanced Auto Parts or O'Reilly's, because they're all pretty much refurbished and recycled and ready to be sold. And they also come with a 1-year warranty, so you can get these free, which is what I got with this, just by giving up the previous axle that I've taken off the car like months ago. And this is like the very first axle that I've kept the minute for some reason. But I'm glad I have it here just to show y'all what can go wrong. So I think I already know this incident occurred when I took a left turn one time, and I was trying to beat a red light, and in doing so, I was in downtown Atlanta, and my car was slammed at the time because the previous owner had it really low on the OEM wheels, so the wheels were tucked in like it was on bags. Really bad idea, but pretty much I hit a dip, and the car just, you hear boom, boom. I'm like, damn. So I'm thinking the car started shaking and having vibration issues because I needed my alignment done. Maybe that little bump, that little crevice of power, whatever it was, threw off my suspension and my alignment. But it turned out to be just a tear in the boot. It wasn't this bad at all. This would be undrivable. I just tore it open just to see the anatomy of an axle, and this is what the joints look like. But I started off with a little tear, and grease started spilling out, and over time the wobbling got worse. And then sometimes, this didn't happen to me, but after that you'll probably hear like clicking noises or knocks, because moving parts in another metal housing with no lubrication, you're gonna hear something like that. Now with the Insane Shafts, I have it hooked up to this knuckle assembly, and as you can see, when you turn the axle, it turns the hub assembly, because that's what's gonna turn your wheel. So let's say my hand is the transmission, and if I lower the car, I move in the position of the axle like this. So you see how unorthodox that is. And on top of that, the boot on the wheel side away from the transmission is, responsible for turning, being able to flex the turn with the steering wheel position. So on top of being responsible for having continuous velocity, which is the CV part, you have to, keep in mind suspension position, and it's responsible for flexion with turning. So it's a lot of stress on this part. That's why, like, when you have your car lowered, it's gonna fail prematurely if it's just not strong enough to handle that. And if you add like boost, good luck. Like it's gonna just fail probably within 1 or 2 months. So this is what happened here. My car was lowered. I took a hard left turn with the throttle down, and I hit a bump. So a lot was going on, and it tore the boot. Now I have this in a position to say the car is lowered, right? That right here stretched out enough to where over time it can rip. And this is, mind you, this is the transmission end. So this is where a lot of the power is coming from, 100% of it. So this will be very susceptible to ripping, and it makes sense as to why these ripped on the CV end, the transmission end, and not the wheel end. So everything makes sense now once you just take this stuff off and look at it. But I'll compare the Insane shafts to the Duralast axle, and we can really see, like, break it down from here on. So obviously, since you guys can't feel, I will start doing certain things to the axle to where you can hear noise, and it's mostly dealing with the boot, because like I said, very important, even though it looks like it does nothing other than just house the joints and the grease. Now with that flexing I was talking about with the suspension and the turning position and all of that, you want it to have enough, flexibility to be in those unorthodox position, but at the same time, be firm, like, so it won't rip. This is kind of softer than the, you can hear the firmness, and the flexibility of it is just, wow. Like, I just recently pressed this down and it didn't flex back into its original position. But you don't hear that, that recoil. Let's try the top one. This is kind of softer than this one on the same shaft, so inconsistency right there. This one is the same as this pretty much. And this one is very hard. I was dealing with this off camera like hours ago, and this didn't go back into its original position. And that's real bad, because if that stays like that, that'll rip. And even though it's not on the wheel side, it still might, because heat. Like this, the hardest one of all 8 between the 2 piers. And being too hard is actually not good. Like, think about it. If I twist a rubber band, it'll go back into its original position. But if I twist the end of that cardboard, it'll rip. So that's why I was saying, like, this is in that sweet spot where it's flexible and durable. This is just flexible. This is just durable. Not even flexible at all. And with the noise, since you guys can't hear, you can tell. So I would recommend the Insane shaft to anybody who's gonna boost their CO2. If you do all motor, go ahead and still get this, because this is in the price range of the OEM axle from Honda, which will be like around maybe $400. You might get it a little less for $380 or whatnot, but this is $499 for the 500 horsepower rating axle, and it's also a 1,000 horsepower rating axle, which is ridiculous, because I don't think anybody with a CU2 is getting that close to 1,000, maybe 800 max if you do something crazy, Frankenstein, with the K24 Z3. But there's that for here as far as performance. I wouldn't buy this for stance in the car. I would go ahead and just get an OEM axle for stancing, but you can also deal with the Duralast or any other, refurbished, recycled axle brands out there. But keep in mind, it's gonna probably fail prematurely, like I've been mentioning, and you'll be replacing it like every 6 to 8 months, because that's what I was doing. So I have a time frame and experience with this type of stuff, you know. Well, I'm gonna wrap the video up right here, y'all. Hope y'all, enjoyed it, got some information out of it. I just wanna go ahead and put some knowledge of how important, something like this is, because it'll save you time and money, really. And for me, I just want to do things the right way. That's why my car is not being built like quickly. Like, I just want to orchestrate things so it makes sense. That's why I waited for this to come in the mail so I can go ahead and add it to my my clutch kit, because I'm doing 5 major things. I'm knocking out the transmission first, do my brake system, suspension, deal with the engine, which includes the Merc Racing supercharger, and deal with appearance lastly. So why not, just add an axle shaft that's durable along with my clutch, which is delta handle, more torque. So that's gonna make something like this feel more prematurely, because the transmission is saying, hey, you gotta work harder. So that's what I'm getting at, Now, with the little subscribers that I do have, some of them asked if I'm gonna continue to make videos, and the answer is yes. It's just like in the time periods where nothing's happening, I'm not gonna force content and just make pointless videos, So, and the next one will be scheduled for January. By then, the Insane Shafts will be on there, accompany you with the ACT clutch kit. I will have the downpipe on there next Monday. So it would only make sense to add a full exhaust in December, hopefully, or maybe like the first couple of weeks of January. And then along with that, the short shifter will be on there. So the car will be driving great. Like the feel and the response from the transmission is going to be sweet. And then after that, I'll deal with the other 4 things, because I'm knocking out the transmission work for now in this time period till January. And then the other 4 things that I mentioned a second ago will be handled throughout the year. And hopefully by like next winter, I'm talking about getting a paint job, and the car will be finished. Hopefully I'll be able to take it to shows and take it to tracks and have fun with it. But yeah, I'll see y'all in January. Deuces.